Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones. Where's that bloody Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones, all the way up there. See that? What's that drawing up there? What is that drawing up there? What is it? The Night King, Jon Snow. That's a fan art. That's how much I love Game of Thrones. What's that over there? Winter is Coming sword. What's this over here? Game of Thrones box set. So, yeah, I'm a Game of Thrones super fan. Yeah, I watched every episode from season 1 to season 6 3 times. Yeah, I watched the series 3 times. Whenever the series would come back on, I'd rewatch the old series. Now, before everyone, like I said, when you start going, oh, he's talking about Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, shut your mouth. You talk about EastEnders and Coronation Street and all that kind of bullshit, and nobody says anything. It's just as ludicrous as Game of Thrones in terms of reality. There's no Queen Vic. There's no bloody Adelaide. There is Adelaide. I don't know. I'm not talking about Adelaide Drill. I'm talking about Neighbours or something. There's no, what's that freaking weird place in, oh, there's no Coronation Street. There's no Deirdre Barlow and that bloody pub. I don't know what that pub's called. So basically, when it comes to Game of Thrones, this is my analysis of the series from series 1 to series 8. Yeah, it's still the greatest TV program ever put to TV, obviously, or let's say one of the greatest ever entertainment programs ever. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, it's still my favorite entertainment program ever. Yeah, I've for the last few years have, you know, loved the episodes. I've loved some of my favorite all-time, not just movies, but entertainment have been some of the Game of Thrones episodes. I'm talking about episodes. Yeah. So some of those are some of the best moments in TV history. Game of Thrones is a series which is obviously based on a book, but it took its own route. Now, unfortunately, from series 1 until 6, incredible. Yeah. And incredible. There was a few highs and lows, but incredible. Series 7 started to wane a bit. And I was like, okay, there's a problem. And the reason why there was a problem was that the books that is based on have not been finished. That fat roly-poly George R.R. Martin is too busy eating pancakes or whatever he eats than to write the bloody book. So the books have been in development. It's a story that's been going on for a long time, and they can only implement bits of the book. So there's lots of stories that have not been touched upon. And so towards the end, from series 6, 7, and 8, they have to start to kind of make their own narrative, but they've been given a basic framework. So imagine giving the fat roly-poly George R.R. Martin, yeah, was given, call him fat roly-poly, Rashma Akhtar. That's Mr. Amaraz as well. So they're given a basic framework. This is going to happen at the end. This is going to happen there. This is going to happen. But they weren't told the exact nature of how to get there. So there's a story arc. Now, the problem with this was that the first 5, 6 seasons were based on a book. And so the story narrative was very consistent. What then happened was that, imagine, let's just see, someone name a character from EastEnders that is very popular. All right, so I already know Phil Mitchell. Yeah? So let me say imagine Phil Mitchell, yeah? From my understanding of Phil Mitchell, from when I used to watch EastEnders years ago, he was this fat roly-poly garage mechanic who used to go around with his brother, all that kind of stuff, yeah, and beat people up. He had a pink face, pinker than a freaking tomato. And then imagine the story was then started being written by someone else. And instead of this hard man Phil Mitchell then suddenly opens up a flower shop. Yeah. And Phil Mitchell is like turning like a little bit how you doing? You know, a little bit camp, yeah. So his whole persona suddenly is changed because the story has taken a different direction because they're not basing it upon the previous ones. And so this is kind of what I feel like when it comes to um, Game of Thrones. You had certain characters like Jon Snow. You had certain characters like the Night King, which is that guy up there, which is the ice guy, who's the baddie kind of supernatural guy. And you had Daenerys, you had all the Dragon Queen, you had Cersei, you had Tyrion, Jamie, all of these characters that were built up over the time on a story arc with a personality. Their personalities suddenly took a sharp left and they were doing things that didn't make sense. A bit like if suddenly fat roly-poly Phil Mitchell, from being a garage mechanic, then was a flower shop owner. You'd be shocked if it just suddenly within like an episode they changed over from Phil Mitchell being a gangster in this garage to owning a flower shop and being camp. That's the kind of how jarring it was when you started seeing the personalities change the way they are. Now, Angela Murner says it right. The sets, the direction, you name it, the acting was all incredible, but the writing became terrible just because they couldn't match the books. They were being written from their own imagination. So what happened was the ending. Now, before everyone starts going, you're spoiling it, shut your mouth and get a TV set and watch it. Yeah, spend a bit of money on something and freaking watch Game of Thrones. I'm going to tell you the ending of Game of Thrones and what I thought of each story arc of how they ended. Yeah, and if you don't want to know, freaking get lost. Yeah. Firstly, Jon Snow. Jon Snow was the main protagonist in Game of Thrones and the only character that was a real good guy. Every other character was either good or bad, like real human beings. They were more three-dimensional characters, which some weeks you think, oh, they're right prick, and then but Jon Snow was always very consistent, like his father or his uncle. What's his name? Ned Stark. So with him, his story ended pretty sadly for him. Not only did he not fight the Night King, if anyone knows who the Night King is, imagine Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. The Night King is Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker is Jon Snow. Now they're not father and son, and one of them hasn't got a lightsaber, but they both got swords. One got sword there, one's got sword there. And imagine in Return of the Jedi, you know, they're about to fight, and then Princess Leia comes in and kills Darth Vader. That's kind of like what happened with Game of Thrones. We've been waiting for 6-7 seasons for them two to fight. But instead, this little girl comes in because of the SJWs. And let me get something. I have no problem with Arya, who is the young girl, killing the Night King. I don't give a shit about that. I just didn't like the fact that there was no fight beforehand between them two that we've been waiting for God knows how long. Jon Snow ends up killing the Dragon Queen, who is what's her name again? Daenerys. He stabs her because she became a maniacal bitch. Yeah, like most women become as they get older. I'm joking before everyone freaking cuts that. I'm joking. There's an element of truth though. Not like I'm not joking. So basically, what happened was that he killed her because she became mad, and I'll explain why that story doesn't make sense. He killed her, and because he killed her, he was exiled to this kind of prison place, which is called the Wall. You won't understand this if you don't understand Game of Thrones, and I'm not going to go into it, but it's a place called the Wall. He went there, and he did something that I thought I actually don't have an issue with. He was an individual that didn't fit in the world that you saw there because it was too political. He was too straightforward. It's a bit like me. I'm too straightforward. I can't work with people because if I'm at work, I'm going to tell you how it is. And it's not good to be like that in certain circumstances. You've got to sometimes tell little white lies or shut your mouth. And Jon Snow was like that. So what he did at the end, he went with this other group called the Wildlings, and went over to a totally separate area where the rest of the world will never touch him again. Not like that, you dirty buggers. But went over there, and he's now kind of like off the grid. I don't have an issue with that. I thought that was a good stance to make. He went over there. I was just disappointed that he never fought the Night King. Now, Daenerys, the Dragon Queen. The Dragon Queen, this is where Game of Thrones went mad. You had an individual. Remember, I'm going to give the analogy of Phil Mitchell's, because you peasants only understand EastEnders. Imagine Phil Mitchell, who was a garage mechanic gangster, suddenly opening up a flower shop, and he was like, became camp. Yeah, that's how it felt like this character of Daenerys, the Dragon Queen, went from being a person that wanted to free all the slaves, wanted to help humanity, wanted to do this. She'd done some bad things in the way, but then her story arc becomes she ends up killing everyone. Like literally within one episode, she burns children to death, women, everything. And so her story arc did not make sense. She went from being a person that wanted to stop tyrants to becoming a tyrant within 3 episodes. And now the problem with that is because they were trying to cut the show short, they could have done it, but it would have taken longer, and it would have worked if they spent another 5 episodes building the character to get to that point. It was totally rushed. It didn't make sense. It was like there was episodes missing. Arya, I didn't have a problem with her going off and trying to explore the world. I was fine with that. I like the fact that Sansa, she became the night. I mean, she became the queen in the north. Really like that. I think she deserved it. I didn't understand what that bloody. Oh, look who's there, Full Shepherd. Big up Full Shepherd. I didn't understand why Bran. I don't want the kingdom. I'm the three-eyed raven. Bran is a character that is not really Bran anymore. He's the three-eyed raven. And throughout the whole goddamn show, he's been saying, I don't want to rule. I don't want the crown. What happens? He becomes king, and he then says, I envisaged this from the beginning. I always knew I would be the king. Didn't make sense. So that particular story arc did not make sense that character become the king. Yeah. In terms of Sir Tyrion, the little dwarf, the little guy, yeah, the little person, the best actor, one of the best actors. I'm not saying that because he's a dwarf. Before everyone starts going, Raj, you're being an SJW, you're being the PC brigade, Johnny saying he's a good actor because he's a dwarf. No, he's an amazing actor. He's an amazing actor. Doesn't matter what. I've seen him in films that dwarf shouldn't be starring in. And I'm not saying that. Let me rephrase that. I've seen him in films that you wouldn't have cast a dwarf as the main actor because you're like, that doesn't make sense. But he's carried that film just because of his persona and his acting ability. And so with him, he became the Hand of the King. The Hand of the King basically means that he's the right-hand man of the king or the queen. And basically he's in charge in all but name. He's like kind of like you know, behind the scenes, but he's running. Right? Yeah, he's running things. Big up the Kafars. We're running things, even in King's Landing. Yeah, I said it. Even in King's Landing in Game of Thrones, the Kafars are running things. So they were running. He's running the whole council. You had obviously the usual suspects in there. You had what's his name, Sam Tarly. I didn't have a problem with Sam becoming the Maester because Sam has earned his way through things. Obviously, he should have went to school first, Sam. It's like Sam becoming the Maester of King's Landing is like me suddenly becoming the head doctor of what's it called, Queen Mary's Hospital or something. You know, it's like you don't just suddenly become the head of the doctors unless you have an education. But he was a clever guy, though, so that was a little bit rushed. He shouldn't have thingy. Then what happened was, obviously you had the whole of the cast. They were chit-chatting, having a good time, and talking about running the play, blah, 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 blah. And overall, I like Brienne. She then wrote the story of Jaime Lannister. Now, Jaime Lannister has had one of the craziest story arcs in TV history. He's the guy that pushed the little boy out of a window because the boy witnessed him effing his own sister, his actual real sister. I'm not talking about cousin sisters like, you know, certain communities do. I know I had to have a dig. I'm sorry about that. But real full-on sister. And so he pushed the boy out, who then became Bran, who became crippled and then became the Three-Eyed Raven, blah, blah, blah. And so that story with Jaime, I was disappointed in the story, not of him going back to Cersei, but Cersei became a whining little bitch at the end. Like Cersei, her character arc was embarrassing because she has always been this badass bitch, yeah, that she goes, yeah, you know, I don't give a shit about anyone, blowing everyone up. Towards the end, she was just crying, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Running around. And she just turned into like some kind of like weakling little woman. Didn't make sense. Overall, because I'm not going to go overall, I still think Game of Thrones is the best ever show ever made, but was disappointed massively on the storyline of certain individuals, like the Night King. Totally pissed off about it. If you used to say to me, what is the one biggest thing that I am very upset about Game of Thrones, it's the story of the Night King. That individual went from being the Darth Vader of TV, yeah, to ending up being like I don't know, Postman Pat or something. I don't know. If anyone doesn't know what Postman Pat is, I'm just some character like Mr. Bean. Everything that was scary about him just vanished in the way they ended him. I will say something. So Full Shepherd. So for me, still the greatest ever TV show ever. Full stop. But it loses a few points just because of the last 2 seasons being rushed. Yeah, and that is a massive problem. It's even hard for me to watch the previous seasons because I feel like there's a bad taste in my mouth from this season that I don't really want to watch the previous seasons because I'm a bit annoyed about it. So yeah, I still say so. Let me just see. Yeah, let me say something. Before, there's a lot of SJWs crying and bitching and whining about Game of Thrones, saying, oh, look how they made the woman go mad. She had a bit of power and she lost her mind and she went crazy. And now, look, it's nothing to do with sexism, but it's a fact that if women get too much power, their brains overload. Yeah, look at Margaret Thatcher. She went Looney Tune. Yeah, look at that video from, what is it called? A great video is from Harry Enfield and Chums. And they were showing how too much information for a woman makes their mind go mad. So yeah, she went crazy because she had too much power. Women shouldn't have power. They should be inside cleaning, cooking, and freaking, well, just doing what they goddamn were told. Now, obviously, I'm joking there. No, what I'm trying to say, this is what the SJWs are saying. They're trying to make out as though, because she's a woman, she went crazy. It had nothing to do with the fact that she was a woman. They just rushed the story arc. Yeah, she might have been on her hormonal period. I don't know, but that wasn't the reason why. The other situation is just they're saying the other thing is people are complaining that Bran, who's in a wheelchair, on a wheelchair, because Jaime chucked him out a window when he was younger. They were saying that they were not happy, and I'm not happy with him being king. And it's not because he's in a wheelchair. So some people, these SJWs, are so goddamn mad. They're now crying that, oh, they don't want him to become king because he's disabled. No, it's got nothing to do with a disability. It just doesn't make sense as a story arc. And this is the problem with SJWs. They would find discrimination in anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If you wanted to buy a white fridge, oh, you want to get the white fridge because you're a white supremacist. They will find anything in everything in order to equate it to some kind of SJW cause, whether that's racism or whether that's to do with disabilities and stuff like that. So, so that's my little take on Game of Thrones. Let me just read a couple of comments. I'm going to go in a minute. Bloody 2 hours.